But the British people have made a very clear decision to take a different path.
I will resign as leader of the Conservative and Unionist Party.
That there should be a new leader of that party and therefore a new Prime Minister.
That I am resigning as leader of the Conservative Party.
Are the Tories just incompetent, or is there something else at play here? Brexit, increasing right-wing nationalism, and 10 years of political turmoil can be blamed almost entirely on one big lie that cuts to the very fabric of our national identity. Let me explain.
I know you're going to miss us. I know you want to ban our national flags, but we're going to wave you goodbye.
Paraphrase the Financial Times. So much of what Britain has done and thought in recent years makes sense if you assume it is a country of 330 million people with a $20 trillion annual output. If you take a step back and frame all of our country's mistakes since David Cameron decided to call the Brexit referendum, you will see that each of these steps would not have been a mistake if we were an international superpower. The country, and the Conservatives especially, have become so influenced by American media that they have forgotten that we're not the United States. The genesis of this phenomenon can be traced back to the Leave campaign and its central protagonist, Nigel Farage.
I'll go for a pint.
Nigel Farage is arguably the most successful politician in British history. He almost single-handedly took the country out of the EU and then wambled off to a life of wealth and privilege whilst taking no responsibility at all for the mess that he caused. Politicians were left baffled when the Leave vote was successful because all but the most fervent anti-EU zealots knew it was a staggeringly stupid idea, and they could not understand why the public had fallen for such nonsense. What they didn't understand at the time was that the Leave campaign had tapped into an extremely powerful cultural touchstone for the British people. The idea that the age of empire wasn't over, that we were still a powerful and important country. This is the great lie that has been sitting in the back of the mind of the British consciousness. Nigel Farage understood this and weaponized it to achieve his own goals. Once you have accepted that this is a lie that people fell for, it is easy to see why each of the subsequent prime ministers had to leave, either due to rejecting the lie or due to the lie falling apart when they actually believed in it. Theresa May had to leave because she did not believe in this lie. No matter what you think of her politics, she was working to make a deal that she thought put the best interests of British people first. But those that believed in the lie would not accept that we had to concede to concessions in a deal with the EU. They thought that we should be the ones pushing around the other countries. When she couldn't make this happen because the EU isn't actually that important,
We looked at the dining table and saw an opportunity to play whiff-waff.
Boris knew that the lie was a lie, but he got in power by pretending that it wasn't. He knew that he couldn't negotiate anything better, but he didn't care about the outcome for the British people. He cared only that he remained in power. The disconnect between how the Leave voters saw our country and our true weakness would have come to a head much quicker if it wasn't for COVID. Boris's own shortcomings were forced to the surface when faced with a disaster that was beyond him. But if anything, COVID preserved the great lie, so that one last pretender could come forward and try to use it for her own gain.
Mr. Speaker, I am a fighter and not a quitter.
By late 2022, not many people still believed in the lie. Our inability to get a trade deal with the US, the complete lack of respect from the EU and every other country was causing most people to realise that we aren't really a superpower anymore. But some still believed, and those 200,000 Tory voters threw their last effort behind the only moron that still believed in the great lie. Liz Truss. She didn't last long, with it becoming evident day by day that the UK cannot make the same kind of moves as a country like the US and get away with it. The US could cut taxes and increase debt, because they are the world's reserve currency and the entire global economy has an interest in making sure they succeed. That is not the same for the UK. As strong as we are but a rounding error compared to the US, China and the EU. So if faced between a choice of sticking with the UK in a moment of global economic uncertainty, or putting their money somewhere bigger and stabler? Well, the choice was obvious.
You think people are stupid?
No, I think people will see that.
You think people aren't going to see through this?
No, I think what people will see.
By now, most of the population has understood the reality of our situation. We are a fading power, and with the death of Queen Elizabeth, the last of our soft power in the Commonwealth is beginning to unravel. We must prepare for the future, where we are no longer a dominant player on the world stage. We could have been, and may still be in the future, a powerful member of the European Union. But the British people have learnt, in the hardest of ways, that a country of 67 million people just cannot compete with the US, China, India, the EU, and a myriad of other newly industrializing big countries. We just don't have the growth to make ourselves lucrative to investment, or the stability and size to make us fundamental to the world economy. Those that deny this will point to London and its central place in the world financial markets. And to them I say, firstly, London is not the UK. It is its own thing and bears almost no relevance to the rest of the UK. And two, London is an airport for money. Lots comes in and lots goes out, but only a tiny percentage stays in the national economy. This isn't Wall Street. This isn't the destination. This is just the layover whilst cash makes its way to other places. With the recent ascension of Rishi Sunak, hopefully he can stabilise the markets and return some economic credibility. But in the long term, we can only hope that voters have realised the weak position we are in as a country and vote for change based on reality rather than appealing lies.